All right, our episode will be very exciting because we have a very exciting resource person. I'm very excited to see him later.
Scary. Very
Oo, very,
intimidating.
very published talaga at a very young age. No? He's so motivated and driven if you look at his CV. Okay. Oh my goodness, we're recording already. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Break Reflections and Conversations. I am Rowena, Apolinario, your resident mama and tita.
Coffee Break is a relaxed discussion on management principles over coffee, tea, or your choice of drink.
And on behalf of Sir Dan Dorado, hope you get well soon. It is a virtual pantry where we meet our colleagues and friends in the LIC world. I'm Dridge Reyes, your Kuya TA. Just stop working for a moment, grab your drink of choice, and join us, the management faculty members of SLIS, on a well-deserved recess. Join us on our Coffee Break!
Yay!
By the way, before we start, I'll just get my cup of coffee again for round 2.
Okay, sige Janny, see you later. Good afternoon, everyone. Last August, we had the episode on pursuing further studies in Europe with Daryl Marco and Randolph Mariano. We learned a lot from their career journey leading up to where they are now, a master and PhD students in Europe. This afternoon, true to our goal of inviting international resource speakers, we have a renowned, well-published, and decorated young social computing researcher residing in the United States, but is also a Filipino. He graduated Bachelor of Science, Informatics Human Computer Interaction from the University of Washington, magna cum laude, minor in music, and also Information Science and Technology from Syracuse University, concentration on data science. To our viewers, let us all welcome Mr. Bryan Dosono. Hello, Bryan. How are you?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on this coffee break. I'm really excited for our conversation today.
We are very happy to have you, Bryan. So tell us more about the things you're currently busy with, like activities, projects, or research, and so many other things.
Yeah, so I'm currently a researcher located in New York City, and I have been working in industry for the past couple of years. After finishing my PhD program, I became an experienced researcher at Airbnb, and there I was embedded in their trust team, really looking at interesting problems of how we can improve trust and safety on a worldwide global marketplace platform. And after that, I've been able to transition to a design researcher role at eBay, where I'm embedded on the payments team. And there I get to really understand interesting ways that sellers on the platform are using eBay to really sustain their livelihood and helping them improve their payments experience. So that is what I do for my day job right now. But I'm also really involved in the broader human-computer interaction community that has been giving me professional development over the past decade of my own personal enrichment. So for example, I am a member of the Association for Computing Machinery. And there I have been working closely with colleagues who are also interested in looking at research that really looks at the intersection of race and human-computer interaction. I am part of the Race in HCI collective, and we've been doing a number of series and magazine articles and even workshops at conferences like CHI to socialize the importance of looking at race critically within social computing systems. So that's been super interesting, and I love getting to work with colleagues from a wide array of disciplines and institutions to help us and the world understand how race plays into the complexity of our own identities. And outside of doing some of this public academia work, I've also developed a passion for mentoring. And over the years, I've found that mentoring has been a really great way for me to give back to communities that also have nurtured me as a professional. One of my favorite organizations that I've played a mentoring role in previously is I3, the iSchool Inclusion Institute. And I definitely wanted to give them a shout out because I've been able to serve them as a PhD teaching fellow and later as a research advisor. It's a program that helps undergraduate research and leadership development opportunities for college students who may come from underrepresented backgrounds in the United States, and also prepares them for graduate coursework. And as someone who is born of immigrant parents from the Philippines and having been born in the United States, I know full well how challenging that journey to grad school can be. So just serving as a mentor to students within, for example, the iSchool Inclusion Institute has also been really rewarding. And outside of that, my time currently right now is spent also learning about my own culture, my own identity through Filipino martial arts. It's something that I've been able to start several months before the COVID pandemic really hit full storm in the United States. And it's something that I'm now also able to continue practicing through digital mediated platforms like Zoom. So it's been a really fun way for me to also stay in shape and get to decolonize the way in which I learn about my own heritage and my own ancestry.
Wow, that's great, Brian. You're doing a lot of things. You're doing a lot of things at a very young age, and your areas of research, your research interest, that's magnificent. I actually looked at your articles also. They're very interesting, and that is also one thing that we would like to do here in the Philippines. So, like what you mentioned a while ago, off the record a while ago, we're very happy that you're open for collaboration, because I'm sure there are a lot of Filipino students, um, college students, who will be interested in that area as well. Okay, and that's so for hello Johnny, hello Johnny, Johnny's
Hi,
here.
ma'am.
Hi, sir.
Brian, hi,
Hey
Brian,
Brian.
there.
he's late on coffee break, but he's one of our faculty members who really drinks a lot of coffee, like 5 cups a day minimum. Okay, so Johnny will just talking about, of course, Brian here. And Brian, I'm just curious because you've mentioned a lot of activities. I saw your CV, and you're also interested in photography and the travel, and you maintain a vlog. I'm just so amazed with your energy. So, for example, in a day, because I think a lot of people will also learn a lot from your time management skills. How does your day go? Like when you wake up in the morning, what do you do? Because you have so many activities lined up.
Yeah, that's a really great question. And for me, a lot of my time in my undergraduate studies was really fine-tuned on how to make the most out of every minute of the day. When I was in college, I was also pretty involved on campus, and I had to find ways to make the most out of my time by really connecting the dots and making sure that the activities or the commitments that I chose really fit together in a broader mosaic. For me, I find greater purpose and enjoyment in the activities I do when I'm able to marry my personal interests with my professional pursuits. And in doing it that way, it's less exhausting. And for me, it's a way to really go faster on both fronts. And in addition to, for example, using a calendar, Google Calendar, I also love the analog approach nowadays for me to unwind too. Just like Janny, who drinks a lot of coffee, I also consider myself a heavy coffee drinker. So whenever I need to unwind, I love, for example, meditating at the end of the day. I have my own analog bullet journal, and it's a way for me to keep track of habits that I want to look at per week. you can see that this is truly like, for example, an information professional who maps out like just different dimensions of, for example, health. So right now, one of my biggest focuses, particularly because of the onset of COVID, has been just really tracking my wellness. And right now I'm tracking it across different dimensions. I'm tracking it across emotional dimensions, environmental, financial, intellectual, occupational, physical, social, and spiritual. And this is just a good way for me to do one thing that is not on a screen, because I'm always I think when we look at screen time, when we compute how much time we spend on our mobile phones and these video chats and just what we need to do for our day-to-day work, it's often a lot of light that's emitted. And so for me to have a journal, particularly a journal that is in dark mode, it's just a way for me to really unwind and to really, again, connect the dots day after day, week after week, month after month, to know that I'm on the right track and to at least find out and plot how my day-to-day actions are helping me realize what I want to accomplish at the end of the month, at the end of the year, at the end of 5 or 10 years.
Wow, we are learning a lot from you, Brian. You know, you're very good at time management. You're so focused. You're so focused, and I like the idea that you go old school again, like writing in your journal. Okay, so that's great, you know. And you mentioned about, you know, that's the best thing when you marry something that you really like, your passion and your interests. I think that's a goal, that's a dream of all the people. Like we can do the things that we love and we enjoy the things that we like. Okay, so Brian, what was it like career-wise before you pursued graduate studies?
Yeah, so before I pursued graduate studies, I directly came from an undergraduate program. What's really interesting is that I did my undergraduate at the University of Washington Information School, and then I transitioned directly to the Syracuse University School of Information Studies. So I went from one I school to another, and I think that's been pretty rare, but I'm seeing now more and more, particularly with programs like I3, the iSchool Inclusion Institute, showing undergraduates a pathway that grad school is possible. That I think for me, it was a really seamless transition because I came from one iSchool background to another. So I haven't been able to really develop industry experience before grad school because I directly came out of undergrad. But I have been able to exercise a number of leadership opportunities and just professional growth trajectories through my time in my undergraduate career. When I was a student at the University of Washington, I was very involved in their student government. I presided over their student body senate. I was involved with the Filipino American Student Association, and I was involved with my Asian American fraternity, Lambda Phi Epsilon. So a number of these opportunities that allowed me to really interface and intersect with different groups of people gave me the confidence to be able to speak publicly, to handle conflict fairly, and to just be really immersed in being ready for life after college. And I think it's just getting to meet these different dynamics of people that also helped me understand my passion for information science and for informatics broadly. One of my mentors that I've met in my circle of different student groups connected me to what a major of informatics was like. When I was in high school, I didn't even know informatics was a word. So to be able to just continue to expose myself to different student leaders, I think also gave me the affirmations needed to realize that there's more to learning than traditionally defined degrees. So for example, I originally came into college wanting to major in astronomy because I was really interested in the celestial bodies, the stars, and looking at like black holes and just understanding the sheer magnitude of where we are, where we came from, and where humanity can go next. And I realized that a number of the questions that made me really interested in pursuing astronomy also applied to informatics and human computer interaction. And I've learned over the years that there are so many interesting problems to solve when it comes to the digital divide, privacy amongst marginalized communities, security in emerging technologies, that this is a field that I know will always present me with really interesting problems to solve. And what's interesting about these problems in compared to astronomy is that with at least the informatics, there's always that human component, that human element. It's often hard to, sometimes account for erratic human behavior. And having interned, for example, for Boeing in the past, that really made me realize that a career in engineering may be lucrative, but it's not something that really drove me to want to wake up every day and just solve problems that are related to like aerospace or dynamics of that sort. But I was interested in understanding issues of digital inequality. I was born in a Native American reservation in Washington State. These reservations in the United States are pockets of where First Nation groups have been relegated just because of the way in which indigenous genocide has led up to conditions for these groups. And having been born and raised, for example, on the Yakima Reservation of Washington State, I noticed growing up that a lot of my friends, myself included, didn't have the best technology to even access important information resources. We often had to go to our local library to print out an important homework assignment or to access a search engine. Again, this was back in like the mid, like early, I graduated high school in 2008. So like a lot of this was still pretty nascent too. But when I went to college, I noticed that there was Wi-Fi around every corner. Every pocket had a smartphone, and these sort of conditions of digital inequity just were so exacerbated by rural and urban communities. And that's just something that really motivated me to like understand why and understand help me inform what can I do to make it so that technology is more accessible by all populations. And that's what ultimately drove me to also want to pursue a PhD.
That was quite a story, Brian. So I'm wondering, with all this background that you have and all this experience that you have, what really motivated you in pursuing your graduate studies, and what was the factor that influenced your decision in doing so? No, were there factor like uh, the experience you had before? Was there a fact? Was there an influence by what was your graduate studies influenced by your experience before?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I was motivated to pursue my PhD coursework because I knew that I wanted to become an independent researcher, and I knew that having a PhD was one of the pathways to do so. I had a fantastic I had numerous fantastic faculty mentors when I was a student at the University of Washington. I was mentored by, for example, Professor Ricardo Gomez, who helped me understand different frameworks for digital inclusion. I was mentored by the Ronald McNair program and the faculty associates affiliated with that program, who provided pathways for students of color to get into graduate schools and to be adequately prepared for graduate schools, to understand the barriers that, for example, may come with applying for these graduate programs. Within the United States, for example, back then, the GRE, the graduate record examination, was often a requirement. And these were just elements that I was not aware of, being the first person in my family to pursue graduate school. So knowing that a lot of these obstacles are already like persisting, I really wanted to take it upon myself to deconstruct a number of these obstacles to prove to my younger brother and my younger sister and my younger cousins that graduate school was possible, and that if I could do it, they can do it. So a lot of this was the impetus for me to pursue graduate school, was also to lead and learn by example, and to demonstrate to my siblings and to my cousins that while this is new territory, it's territory that they don't have to navigate alone. For me professionally, I really knew that information science was also a growing field. A lot of the roles, for example, that we have today in information science or user experience, they never existed 20 years ago. So now the landscape is constantly changing, and I can't imagine a more exciting field that produces professionals that can go into all sorts of different roles. A lot of my colleagues who graduated from the iSchool are now either software engineers or database administrators. They're faculty who teach at iSchools or even other disciplines outside of the information sciences. My colleagues are leaders, they're community servants, they are those who are really changing the world in their own way, and they're able to have a lens that focuses on the intersection of information, people, and technology to inform their decision making. So that's also what really motivated me to look specifically at graduate programs that had the iSchool point of view. And that is what eventually got me to pursue my PhD at Syracuse University.
Brian, you're so driven, and you mentioned, I really admire that you're very driven. I think early on you already know what you like. Was it, of course, you told us your motivations in pursuing graduate studies. You want to be a model, your family members, and you are really attracted to data science and informatics. Uh, when did this start? You mentioned something that you didn't know this existed in high school, but how did you come to know about it? Because somehow your bachelor's degree is somehow related to it as well. Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. So for example, for students who are still trying to explore what they want to do or what they want to get into, my advice would always be to open yourself to as many possibilities and opportunities as you can. Because you're a student, you have so much creative freedom to explore. And even if you fail, just fail forward. Like for me, I always look at a failure as an opportunity to learn. I look at a rejection as an opportunity for a redirection into a different opportunity. And I think it's just being and then really embracing a growth mindset will help you realize what you like and what you don't like early on. For me, it's better to iterate on pursuing like 20 hobbies and just realize, I don't like that one. I don't like that one. I don't like that one. I would much rather enter my explorations with a really wide view of what's possible rather than limit my explorations to only a couple of things that I already know about myself. I always feel that, being intentional about getting outside of your comfort zone is where you're going to grow the most. For me, I'm very introverted. So I know one of the things I absolutely had to do in college was surround myself with other people. Even if other people drained me, it was an opportunity for me to learn and for me to see the world through other people's points of view. I currently right now work as a UX researcher. So having empathy for understanding other people's points of view, particularly in a product context, is super important. And empathy is one of those really hard skills that's hard to learn in industry. And I'm lucky that I had exposure to that early on in college when I was exposed in so many different student groups and to different opportunities. For those who are still in college, I'd recommend them to really diversify their experiential learning opportunities. If I know that we're in a pandemic, but once that clears up, study abroad, see what other global perspectives exist out there. I was really fortunate to study abroad 4 times in college, and for example, the University of Washington iSchool sponsored a a Dutch designs program in the Netherlands, and that was very information science focused. And I was able to use that program to satisfy an undergraduate research credit that I needed to graduate. I would also recommend undergraduates who are currently in college to consider research opportunities. Find ways that you can collaborate with a professor or with a researcher or a scientist to solve really interesting problems. There are so many different opportunities to even do research independently, or to do it within a lab model, or to even do it as, for example, a research assistant in a laboratory setting. So there's so many opportunities to grow within that field. And I know that another experiential learning opportunity that was really critical for me to learn in undergrad was service learning. How are you applying the skills that you're learning in the classroom to really improve and augment the community around you? And for me, I was able to look at, for example, I was able to volunteer at a local nonprofit in Seattle. It's called Interconnection, and that nonprofit takes in old or it disassembles old computer parts and old technology, and it provides volunteers the opportunity to refurbish those computer parts so that other either countries or other communities can recycle or reuse that existing technology. And for me, understanding that the service learning component helped me understand where I fit within my own community and how I can also use technology, not just for profitable context, but also to help improve the state and condition of our own local community. So I think, just really diversifying the plate of what you can do, especially as a student, should be as open and embraced as possible, because you don't know what you don't know. So, I would always recommend my students and my advisees to really just broaden their perspective, and it starts with them growing outside of their comfort zone.
That was quite an advice for all the students that we have. Contrary to what you have, we students here in the Philippines actually most of the time came from other courses before they take LIS. So I think they already have what we call an enlightenment that the LIS is what we call we may call the course of the future. No, so with all this story that you have, Bryan, with all the experiences that you have, what can you say is the biggest takeaway or biggest takeaway in this whole journey? So maybe
Yeah, I would say that my biggest takeaway for students and the what has helped me also pursue as many opportunities as possible is to really be hungry, be voracious, and to realize how precious life is. I'm because of where we are in this pandemic, it only made me, it's easy to be cynical and to see the world on fire, but for me, applying a growth mindset also shows that there's another set of opportunities that I never really considered before, but are now made possible because of the pandemic. So, for example, even if I couldn't attend conferences in person, in this day and age, for an introvert, this is like the best way for me to attend conferences, because I have like, 5 different monitors. I could be at 5 different conferences at once, and I'm not limited to where I am spatially for me to interact. And for a number of the students right now, like I would recommend them to also search for different pockets and online communities of where their interests may lie. So I did my dissertation research on Reddit. Reddit is a pseudo-anonymous online forum where you can look at a number of different communities that suit your interests. And for me, a lot of my dissertation looked at the ways in which communities negotiate their identity work through deliberation, moderation, and decolonization. The exposure to just different sub-communities also helped me realize that while a lot of groups and people have stark differences, there's also a number of things that unite people of different backgrounds and of different interests. So for me, looking at similarities despite the differences also allows me to connect those dots. So again, just being hungry, being voracious, and really trying to find other silver lining opportunities from an otherwise bleak pandemic outlook, I think is going to be super important. And I think we're really positioned, particularly since all of us in this coffee break have a really fresh perspective on information science and where the field can go. This is just the beginning, and there are so many other ways that we could approach these problems with our own global perspectives. Because we're all like relatively young, I think that also gives us more time to also help the next generation shape what they can do, where they can go, and map out possible trajectories of how they want to contribute and advance the field. But again, like it all starts with being hungry, being voracious, and really finding these silver lining opportunities.
Yes, I'm sure that there are a lot of students who are interested in that. In our university, we offer a library and information science. So I think this is a good. It's another field that they can focus on. because most of our graduates would work in a library setting, but there are also some graduates who work like in industries as well, like you. So to all our listeners, look at Bryan here. And if you want to know more about Bryan, you just check out his website. It's bdosono.com. You can see there his interests, his publications, the things he's busy with, and at a very young age. Bryan, I hope you don't mind if I ask, how old are you?
Oh yeah, I don't mind at all. I'm currently 31 years old.
See, very, very young, very such an accomplished young man. So and very driven. And during the pandemic, a lot of people would be demotivated to, to do things. But you work differently. You were like you said, because you're an introvert, it's an opportunity for you to attend conferences, multiple conferences that you don't have to mingle physically with the participants, and you did manage your time very well. That's why I asked you a while ago, how does your day go? So do you have time for researching? You have time for all of your interests, doing a lot of things. So Ryan, right now, are you writing some articles right now? You mentioned a while ago, like something about race and yes, can you
Yes.
tell us more about that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Very
absolutely.
interesting.
So one of the recent publications that just came out this week, I have like the magazine in front of me.
Mhm.
This was a collective zine article that I wrote with the Race and HCI Collective. I'm going to put it in this Zoom chat, and perhaps we can pin this on the YouTube
Yeah,
comments once
okay,
this is released.
we'll do
And this is
that.
also available online.
Mhm.
But this was one of the really recent projects that I was able to partake in, that really helps just different communities understand how they can use zines. For
Mhm.
example, so zines are like informal publications that different community groups can use to mobilize and to help educate their community about different issues.
Mhm.
Here, this was a collective effort on a number of different zine topics, and this was also at the intersection of just race and computing. So
Mhm.
I love doing collaborative collective work, and this is just one of the examples of where I'm dedicating a lot of my research efforts right now. We've
Mhm.
accompanied this zine article with a an equity talk, an ACM equity talk, and that should be coming out in YouTube hopefully within the next couple of weeks or so as well. But it's also
Mhm.
a conversation and dialogue to get other scholars to think about how they can be more critical in how they're addressing race within their own research. So this is
Mhm.
something I'm super proud of. This was born out of a Kai workshop
Mhm.
from ACM. So this is just, I think, one of the exciting things that I get to do as an industry researcher. And again, I'm always looking for opportunities to collaborate. So
Mhm.
if there's anyone out there in the audience who wants to connect further, please reach out to me. And I'm generally interested in looking at identity work in online communities. I have a background in studying how moderation happens online, and
Mhm.
also looking at the ways in which we can decolonize the way that we learn. So
Mhm.
if any of those topics strike
Yeah.
you as interesting, please reach out.
And thank you very much, Sir Brian. So I know you've already shared so much earlier, and so I've already gotten so much advice from you. I'm one of the youngest member of the faculty, but again, to get for to squeeze more knowledge from you, do you have any more tips to students or other information professionals who would like to follow in your footsteps, or do you have anything more to promote to us or to our viewers?
Yeah, I think that I would also encourage the viewers to also really look at the way in which education is changing. So I learned so much from YouTube. I can't even place the amount I've learned on YouTube, I feel oftentimes has been more helpful to me than some of the courses I took in grad school or in college. Nowadays, with these informal systems really upending or at least changing the way that we should look at formalized education, I would really challenge our viewers to also look at where else that they can get really great learnings outside of academia. So for example, for me, again, like YouTube playlists of like just really topical videos have been super helpful in helping me learn. I love subscribing to PBS Crash Course, and they give me like an overview of just really interesting topics that I never had the time to pursue as an undergrad. I also encourage our viewers to experiment with different technologies just to see what they like and what they don't like. I grew up in the era of MySpace in high school, and that was my formative way of exploring how to parse HTML and CSS. I know that youth today are probably on TikTok and really experimenting with rich forms of media. So it's all up to the viewer of how they want to learn and educate. But any learning or action is better than just staying dormant or stagnant. So continue to grow. Particularly if you're going to be an information professional, I would encourage you all to also start finding ways to brand yourself online, looking at just personal branding, and try creating your own website, try creating an app, a try inventing some sort of technology, or try writing about any issue that you see online and create a blog about that. There are just so many different ways that we can now engage ourselves digitally. We should be able to like experiment and do it in a way that again broadens our horizons and that will connect us to different people. I'm hoping that this coffee break will connect me to those who I haven't yet been able to meet and interact. So for example, one of the conferences that I used to go to, particularly as a grad student, was the I conference. And just some chance interactions and encounters there, I was able to now be invited to this coffee break. So again, it's a lot of these networking opportunities that I would recommend our rising information professionals, library information science professionals to really take advantage of and to really make the most of their interactions online. While interactions online have a different resonance than in-person interactions, that there's still much to be had and relationships to be formed through these communications. I haven't met our coffee break hosts in person, but now I'm really excited that to hopefully visit that institution, hopefully in the near future, and interact that way. But the camaraderie that we've developed in this coffee break, while it was done all remotely, I feel really welcomed and I feel like I belong. And it was all a purely remote interaction, and I still had so much fun. I'm having more fun now than an in-person conference.
Wow.
That's so happy to know,
Hmm.
Brian. And you're right because we're all young here. We drive, we drive, and I think we speak the same language somehow, and somehow we're also same in terms of our race. That's why we connect easily. Okay, so by the way, to all our viewers, Brian is actually his parents are from Ilocos.
Wow.
That's right. Is there a Filipino food that you really like? Any Filipino food that
Oh
you
yeah, I'm
love?
going to be very basic. I'm just gonna say chicken adobo right now. I miss
That's
it. I miss the way my mom cooks it and prepares it. I get to visit my parents during the holidays, and that's just one of the things that I look
mhm.
forward to whenever I have the chance to go home.
Yeah. How about Ilocano food? Like, do you like pakbet or dinakdakan or something like
Yeah,
that?
pinakbet is really, really good. It's yeah, delicious. And now I'm sort of craving it because
Oh,
it's almost
wow.
dinner time here in New York.
Even the bitter gourd, we call it ampalaya here. You like it?
Oh yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
love bitter melon.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, it's actually becoming one of these up and coming, or from what I've been seeing, up and
Mhm.
coming ingredients to even be used in bubble tea in the United States.
Really?
So
Wow. Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay. See, we have a lot of things in common with Brian. Okay. Is there any other things that you would like to promote, Brian? We would like just tell us, okay, or just message us if there is still something that you would like us to promote as well.
Speaking of commonalities, sir, and our compatibilities, I'm sure as a researcher and an information professional, you have so much relationship with our fellow librarians. So, from your point of view, how strong would you advocate for librarians to upskill themselves with these skill sets, information professional, data sciences, information sciences, as part of their career development?
Yeah, I would absolutely recommend librarians to pursue these opportunities because for me, like the local librarians I had growing up, they were able to connect me with so many rich information resources. My information needs as a kid definitely varied that from my information needs now. I remember as a kid, I would go to my local library and I would go to the computer. We had to like sign up in 15-minute shifts. And I would either try to find the lyrics to my favorite song to print out, or I would try to find some video game codes that I could use. And for me, because I never grew up with a computer in my house, I had to ask the librarian, how would I navigate? How would I search? How would I browse? And like it's professionals who have the patience to deal with patrons from all different skill sets to really become information professionals of their own. And I also think that libraries and librarians are going to be a really strong vanguard for making sure that those communities, particularly those that have the least access to information, the librarians are going to be the ones who are going to be the best stewards to educating those who are outside of school or to those who never had access to a formal education. I think some of the librarians, from what I've also been seeing, and my peers who are librarians, it's also just a great way for you to do your work better. So for example, if you are a librarian, if you could automate some of the queries, or if you could automate some of the requests that you're getting, tickets, that's just gonna make your work so much easier than, for example, having to file everything manually or to have to take time to like understand, where certain items in the collection are. So in another way, like understanding, for example, AI may also help all of us do our jobs much more efficiently, more quickly, and with less resources needed than what we're doing today. So I'm really hoping that our librarian peers and colleagues can embrace these new technologies and make it work for them.
Thank you very much, Sir Bryan. So I would also take this opportunity to promote here in the Philippines, Sir Dan and Sir Janny.
Yes,
They created this data librarianship special interest group. Sir Janny, care to?
Yes, actually, with what Brian has told us, no. So he basically told us that we need to upskill ourselves, and with this, me, Sir Dan, Sir PJ, and Sir Stephen would like to invite all our librarians in the Philippines to join our special interest group. No? So this special interest group is called Data Librarianship Special Interest Group. No? So we are basically looking for individuals who wants to be part of this interest group and would like to discuss the role of big data, computational process, and digital scholarship in our profession. So we would like to invite all our librarians. So join our special interest group and upskill our profession.
We can invite Brian there also to give
Maybe actually,
inputs.
ma'am. Sometimes
That's
I think Sir Dan will reach out to Sir Brian for
again.
again.
Yeah. So shout out to our coffee break faculty member Dan, who is not here because he's recuperating. But of course, he extends his well wishes and he hopes to see you again somehow, Brian. Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope to see you all like at the
Yes.
hopefully the next conference or next like virtual gathering. I always think that it's just wonderful to get
Yeah.
to meet colleagues, particularly those who have that global perspective, and colleagues who also share the same ethnic background that I do. So this has been such an amazing treat. I'm so glad that you all invited me to this coffee break.
The honor is ours, Brian. Thank you so much. And thank you to Sir Dan for introducing you to us. Okay.
And so I think it's time for our last question, our most important question of all, for everyone listening. Sir Bryan, what is your usual drink of choice when you're busy working or just relaxing or doing your thing? What do you usually drink?
Yes, my go-to beverage first thing in the morning is just black coffee. For me, I like it with no sugar, no additives, no room for whipped cream or milk. I just need the caffeine, and it's to the point where coffee is like water to me.
Mhm.
So that is my go-to when I need to start the day.
Yeah, thank you very much. So personally, I'm a tea person, but I get to concur that no one can beat pure black coffee. So with that, we would like to thank our coffee sponsor, Cafe Moksha. Cafe Moksha is a distributor and retailer of coffee and cacao products. So follow their Facebook page, guys. Yun. So
All
thank you very much, Sir
right.
Bryan.
Okay. I think thank you so much, Brian. Okay, we learned a lot of things from you. You know, there are a lot of pieces of advice, words of wisdom that we got from you. And for our BLIS students or students in the oh my goodness, it's time.
Yeah, we have to go back to work now.
The coffee break is okay, it's done now. So we have to go back to work and do our usual thing. Again, thank you so much, Brian. Like I said, we learned a lot from you, you know, a lot of pieces of advice, words of wisdom, and to our students who are also looking at that particular field, you know, to focus on. We had a very good conversation about that. So thank you again, everyone. Join us again next month as we discuss another important management topic and issue here in
Coffee
Coffee
break!
Break.
Yay!
Thank you for having me.
Salamat po.